Hi, this is Ed Weinberg at CTREIA Media, and today we are going to talk about how you price a house when you're going to flip it, or some pricing things you can do if you're going to keep the house. First, let me tell you who I am. I'm Ed Weinberg. I am an investor and I'm a real estate agent at Keller Williams, and we do these talks 2+ times per month or so. Today I'm going to be talking with Ron Faraci, and we're going to talk about how you price your house. So, if you're out watching, if you're watching this on the replay, please give us a like so that we know you were here. All right. Ron, why don't you tell us who you are?
Hey, Ed, thanks for having me on first and foremost. My name's Ron Faraci. I'm a real estate investor in Central Connecticut. My office is in Portland, Connecticut. And as of very recently, also the Silas Deane Highway. Just signed a lease today, in fact, for a quite large office space. My wife and I own and manage, I don't even know, probably 400 or 500 rental units. We flip houses, although not on a large scale, but on a smaller scale. So written a couple of books on the subject. Nothing fantastic. You won't see me on the best seller list. I recently, the rumors are rampant out there, so I'll just make this the official announcement that I've purchased CTREIA, the Connecticut Real Estate Investors Association, of which I've been a member for about a decade, and the opportunity presented itself, and I saw that as a way to give back to the real estate investing community here in Connecticut, to kind of stand on the shoulders of those who built it. And I hope to add massive value to all the rest of the investors through CTREIA and going through that. So thank you for having me.
Okay, great. First of all, if you're watching, if you can give us a like or just type hello so I know you're there. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is how we price a house. So if we're going to, I'm going to use the word flip. I consider myself a real estate redeveloper. So that's kind of a mouthful way of kind of saying the same thing. And I guess that what both Ron and I have seen are a lot of times people are sending us deals or posting deals on Facebook that mathematically don't quite make sense. So, Ron, I guess that there's something they call and we're just using this as a first pass approximation, the maximum allowable offer. So why don't you tell us what that is?
Yeah, so maximum allowable offer, as you said, is commonly referred to as MAU, right? So there's a formula. That formula has been tried and true, no matter whether you live in Beverly Hills or Bridgeport, and your maximum allowable offer, and you take your ARV, your after repaired value, and apply a multiplier to that. And of course, the generally accepted multiplier is usually a 0.65 in a market that's tight, such as ours is in certain markets anyway. People use a 0.70, and then you'd subtract your repairs out of that, your estimated repairs, and that would give you MAU, right? So sounds convoluted. What I've always found is that, generally speaking, if you take ARV and cut it in half and maybe add a little bit, you get close to your number. That's a loaded statement, of course, but yeah. Now, of course, that's if you're looking to flip or wholesale the house. Those are the numbers, and then you have to subtract a wholesaler's fee based on that calculation. And yeah, some people deviate from those numbers, and they do so at their own peril, depending on the type of market that they're in and type of business that they're doing.
Okay, so we have different people who bring us deals. It could be somebody who owns the house. It could be somebody who we call a wholesaler. So maybe you have someone who has a contract on the house, and if they're a wholesaler, they're going to sell you the contract. So if they're going to sell you the contract, I guess they've got to get the price they're getting on the house has to be better than the price they're going to sell it to you at. Is that right?
Yeah. You know, I see it a lot. I think you do too. Is that they just want to get a deal. A lot of people, of course, not everybody, but some wholesalers, especially new ones, they'll just want anything under contract, and they'll just try to sell that irrespective of the exit strategy of the end buyer. There's no meat on the bone sometimes, but your statement is absolutely correct. So we see that all the time.
Okay, so what I tend to do on a first pass, even before I'll talk to somebody or call about additional information, I guess that what I usually see is the after repair value, the ARV that people give, many of the wholesalers give. Yep, it's a little bit too high.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna my first pass, I'm gonna take the number that they give. I'm going to take 65 or 70% of that. I'm then going to try subtract the number that they're using for how much it's going to cost to repair it. Now, do you usually find that's a little bit higher or a little bit low?
Yeah, they overestimate ARV and underestimate repairs by and large. Of course, I don't want to lump everybody into that, but my experience with wholesalers as a general rule is exactly that. And I've even seen wholesalers bring me deals, and I get 2 or 3 a week brought, to my email. I don't get too granular on them. I give them a pass, as you say, and they don't, pass the smell test. But yeah, I see that all the time, and sometimes I'll see them on the MLS. I was like, don't bring me a deal on the MLS.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's we'll get on that in a minute. So we've got a hello here.
Hey, Steve.
From Steve Potter. And if you're out there, can you just give me like type hello or give me a like so I know you're there. Also, if you're watching, you can do the same thing. And if you have any question about anything that we're saying, you can just if you just type it in there. If you're watching from the bit.ly link, then when you type it, we're going to actually see it come up. I'll see it come up. I can put it on the screen and we can ask Ron the question. So back to where we were before. So as a first pass, what Ron and I both do is we use a little bit of a formula here. We're going to multiply by some number, and I guess that Ron likes 0.65. A lot of people multiply it by 0.7. So we're taking 65% or 70%, and these are what we call well, there's a couple of things at that. One of them is the cost of buying and selling. Now, if you're watching out there, if you can just give us, maybe you can just type something in on the comment as to what some possible buying and selling costs are, and just because I'm sure that you've been over this before and you've seen this kind of thing. So we're gonna take it. We're gonna multiply the price that we're paying, that we're gonna sell it for eventually, by either 0.65 or 0.7. We're going to subtract the amount that the person offering us the deal says it's going to cost to fix up the house. And then we're going to subtract the dollar amount that he wants. Yeah, and boy, sometimes those numbers are negative. Do you see that too, Ron?
Yeah, all the time. And, what I fear is, because the market's been a little hot, especially in the certain, segment of the market, the starter homes, if we're talking about single family homes. So I just get the impression that there's a lot of offers for certain priced houses, 250 and under in most markets. And, everybody's watching HGTV and they're bidding up the price. And I'm seeing it all the time that people are overpaying, and I don't think there's any money there. I just had a discussion at the real estate expo, the CTREIA. We had the real estate expo this last weekend, and a guy brought in a deal and was showing it to me on the MLS, a house in South Windsor, and he went over the numbers. And I'm like, you're going to lose money. And he was just incredulous at that. He's like, you think I'll lose money? I'm like, I know you'll lose money. There's no doubt you'll lose money. The question is how much. And, we dove deep, and sure enough, he'd have lost money, so you get that deal fever, right? And we're all guilty of it, but you got to be prepared to walk away.
Okay, so what I will do after that, that's if those numbers, I look at that as a first pass. Now, if those numbers make sense, then I'm going to go dive into it a little bit more. I'm going
Yeah.
to look at what recent sales are in the area of a similar house, and I'm going to determine what I could really sell that for after I fix it up. The next thing I'm going to want to do is figure out what the actual transaction costs are, and don't have anybody who suggested some of them, but there are certain things that you're going to need to pay. You're going to be purchasing you're purchasing a house. You're going to probably use an attorney. So there's some number. I'm going to guess that unless you've got some real sweet deal with an attorney, it's going to be somewhere between, say, $500 and $1,500. I know the number that I use with the attorneys that I use. You're going to have to pay for insurance. I normally plan on holding that house for 7 months. Well, no, I plan on holding it for 4. I'm hoping to get rid of it by 6, so I put down 7 just to make sure.
Well, it depends on the time of year too, right?
It does. Well,
right now they're carrying it till May.
Sure. Other things that depend on the time of year. If I'm buying it, if I say I'm going to buy it now and I'm closing in a month, that means I'm probably heating it all winter.
That's right.
Yeah. That's got to. Not only am I going to heat it all winter, but we've also got some other expenses. The town's going to want us to pay their property tax for the 6 or 7 months we're gonna own it.
The water bill, the hard money costs, right?
I was going to bring up not only do we have hard money costs, but okay, great. Here we go. Here are some costs that Robert Gonzalez gave us: title cert, title insurance, finance fees. So yeah, not only are we going to need title insurance for ourselves, but if we've got a lender, that lender is going to want to be protected by a title insurance policy also.
That's right. Plus conveyance tax upon the sale. I mean,
that's on the sale. So we've got some front end costs and some rear end costs. And so I'm gonna put all that on a spreadsheet. Do you do the same thing, Ron?
I do. Yeah. You have to look at all, like Robert said, all those costs have to come in. And then when it's all said and done, then when it's all said and done on the back end, like you said, you got the conveyance tax, but then you got realtors commissions, and it just adds up. And I think that's where wholesalers on the front end maybe don't get that granular and think of the back end, think of their end buyer, and there's no meat on the bone. And then some flippers, some housewife who watched HGTV and says I can buy it for $100, it's worth $150, and thinks that's the spread, and you start adding it up and it's not.
Okay, so if we broke that down, let's say that the 70%, we tend to be about 15% is the transaction costs, and that you're going to want to plan on putting 15% in your pocket at least. So that's why we're calling it the maximum. It depends on what the property costs, but generally I don't want to put all that time and energy into a property for less than 15% of the ARV. How about you, Ron?
Yeah, totally agree. On the apartment side, I don't get out of bed for a 10 cap, and I'm not getting out of bed for under 15%, because one thing goes south and there you go.
No, yep. And my wife likes watching those TV shows, and you probably do.
So do I.
Yeah. Okay. So they open up a wall, and my God, what's behind it?
Yeah.
Or the sewer pipe collapses, or something. Okay. No matter what you do and how good you've gone over the house, there's something that's going to go south when you're doing one of these deals. So I typically take what I figure from experience, or if something new comes along, I'll have to bring in a contractor to find out what the contractor is going to cost to fix that crack in the foundation or whatever, or get rid of that mold, depending on how much there is. And I'm going to take all those costs, I'm going to add them up, then I'm going to give myself another 15% buffer. So it's it's amazing that the number that I'm using, people are surprised at how much lower it is than what the house is going to sell for.
Yeah, exactly. And therefore, that right there means you got your ARV wrong, right? So
Right.
if you miscalculated anywhere along that breadcrumb trail, then guess what, sunshine? You're asking if you want fries with that, because you're probably not going to make a living as a house flipper nor a wholesaler. So and it's not a business for the faint of heart. It can be wildly profitable. It can be fun. It can be nerve-wracking, but I do flip houses. I might flip, maybe 2 a year. Nothing crazy. Like I said at the beginning, I'm primarily known as a landlord. That's the sandbox that I play in, right? So fairly well, I think. But I also apply that formula to my buildings. If I'm looking at an acquisition, there is an ARV that I have to look for, because even though I'm doing it for buy and hold, you have to look at your exit strategy. The first thing in any real estate transaction, in my very humble opinion, is what's the exit strategy. So even in a buy and hold, that's the first thing I'm asking myself. Although I don't like to sell my buildings, but I want to know what it is. Maybe my exit strategy is to hold it for 10 years at a certain cap rate, but I will apply a multiplier to it. Now, on a buy and hold cash flow acquisition, I'm willing to deviate from those numbers a little bit, because it's a long-term hold for me. But, on a short-term flip, you can't deviate from those numbers. I use 0.65, and I'll tell you why. A lot of people do use 0.70. I think the professionals can use 0.70. I don't know if I want to have such a tight rein. And I know some professionals that do it for a living. They're hyper efficient. They go to that level. They have the crew that can do that kind of work. So if they want to be 0.70 and operate on that razor's edge, in my opinion, they can get away with that. I don't feel like I could. So because my crew is apartment grade crews. They'll lay down some vinyl Allure flooring with the best of them, throw in laminate countertops with the best of them. We can rip out, ceiling fans and garbage disposals with the best of them, but flipping a house requires another level of contractor.
Okay. And I guess something else that we talked about, there are people talking about how that maybe in Connecticut, the outlook for appreciation and for what we're doing with flipping might not be that good. How do you feel about that, Ron?
Well, so I gave a speech this Saturday up at the CTREIA Real Estate Expo, and as you know, I recently purchased CTREIA, so it was an exciting expo, and my keynote opening speech, I guess, if you want to call it, was kind of geared on that exact subject. I'm one of those few guys who actually believe in Connecticut real estate, and I was not happy about the election. I'm not a big fan, but okay. But Connecticut real estate, if you know where to play, what sandbox to play in, can actually offer some amazing opportunities, highly lucrative, and I've been taking advantage of that for years. So to the year 2040, Connecticut's population is actually projected to grow, and that surprises a lot of people. And that's not my opinion. That's the U.S. Census, and UConn did a study. And to the year 2040, our population projection, it's not growing by much. That's the thing. It's almost flatlined. It's slightly growth, about 60,000 new residents over the next X amount of years. So it's anemic growth, but it is growth. But it's buried within that data is where the opportunities lie. So, for example, it's who's moving in and who's moving out. So who's moving out are the higher income earners. Who's moving in mass numbers are the lower income. Think of the Walmart worker, just to as an example. So there's a lot of lower income folks moving into Connecticut. And when I say a lot, it's massive. So how to best service that? So on the flipping side, I don't know if I'd want to flip houses, $800,000 houses. I want to be doing houses to service that growing market, 250 and under. And I think the sales data supports that. On the apartment side of the business, I service that exact. My typical tenant can pay $900 a month for a 2-bedroom cold flat, which means they pay for the utilities. So what kind of building is that, right? It's an older multifamily by definition. It's the only one that can afford to do that. So they're not building any more of them. In fact, we lose almost 2,500 units a year to fires, believe it or not. So growing customer base, shrinking supply in the multifamily business. So I'm big on Connecticut real estate. As a matter of fact, I put my money where my mouth is, and I've recently bought, like I said, CTREIA. So it's one of the largest real estate investors association in the United States. And I did that because I believe in it, and I've been a beneficiary of Connecticut real estate.
Okay, and Ron, Jim Mallon wants you to explain what a cap rate is.
So I'd need a whiteboard and a bunch of time, but Jim, in a very rough sense, the technical definition of a cap rate, is your NOI, your net operating income, divided by your purchase price. In a more real sense, a cap rate is a way to judge the return of an income stream. In the multifamily business, a cap rate is that metric by which that income stream is judged by, if you will. And everybody is different. So Bristol, Connecticut has a different cap rate than Greenwich, Connecticut, than Detroit. So I look for anywhere a 10 to 14 cap is my minimum cap rate for a return on my investment. And then, and this is another discussion, but I then use that cap rate after I own the building to absolutely leverage up and juice my returns by raising my NOI.
So what was that cap rate again? That's the minimum that you'll take?
A minimum is 10, and for 10, it better blow my skirt up. So I want to hover in the 10 to 14% range in the sandbox that I play in, which is Central Connecticut, certain towns in Central Connecticut.
Okay. All right. Do we have any more questions? Just post them there and we'll answer them. If not, we'll wrap things up. And John Kraus says, go get them, Ron.
Hey, John, what's up, buddy? John's a great mortgage guy, by the way. And I don't say that very often. So just shout out to John.
Okay. And Robert Gonzalez gave us a couple of more.
I love it, Robert.
Expenses.
He's right.
HOA fees, taxes, interest, and realtor commission. Let's not forget that when we sell it, I always hope that I'm going to sell it myself. But if I don't sell it myself very quickly, then it's time to put it on the MLS. And if you're putting it on the MLS, you don't want your agent to put it on with the lowest co-broke.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. A race to the bottom usually doesn't help anybody, huh? So to Robert's point, I think you have to factor in, can we say 5%? I mean, 6% sometimes is certainly doable to the realtors out there. I hope you get it, but it's probably averages 5, which isn't nothing, right?
Okay. I know it's not nothing. I pay 6 and I try to get 6 from my clients when I'm listing a house.
Amen, brother.
And because and the thing is that, it's the same amount of work. Well, it's only a $125,000 house. You say, well, it's the same amount of work. Actually, it may be a little bit harder to sell a $125,000 house than a $350,000 house, just because of what it is. And, it's a percentage.
Yeah. Amen.
So, anyway. Okay, so let's wrap it up. Any last words that you can think of there, Ron?
No, I'm excited to be a part of the real estate community. I've been doing this for 10 years. In spite of the election yesterday, guys, I wasn't real happy about it. And, the doom and gloom is just not there. I made money in 2008 and 2009. Nothing was worse than that. I made a fortune, in fact, if I'm being honest about it. Almost 100 units later, and another 400 under management. Connecticut's a great place to invest. Join CTREIA. That's my only thing I want to say.
Okay. And you know what? We're probably going to get together again sometime closer to the beginning of the year or right after the first of the year and talk about the things that you're going to change at CTREIA.
I'm excited to do that with you.
Okay, great. So thanks again. And everyone have a great day.
Thanks, Ed. Good being here.
By the way, if you leave any new messages or any new questions in the comments, either Ron or myself will go back and we'll make sure all of them get answered.
Absolutely.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys.